Couples often already have communication skills. They know what to say, or at least they know what they should say in moments of tension or disagreement or arguments. But what ends up happening is that they can't say it in the moment. And this is usually not a skill issue because they already know the skills up here in their brain. The issue is actually a safety issue. Hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Polinsky, and you're about to start communicating more clearly and feeling more connected in your relationships with this podcast. As a marriage and family therapist, I help people change relationship patterns that feel automatic, those reactions that just kick in before you even realize that they're happening. And for over 10 years, I've worked with people who do hard things for a living, and yet they still feel stuck when it comes to connection in their relationships. This podcast isn't about scripts or formulas or doing relationships the right way. Instead, it's about slowing down reactive moments, understanding what's underneath them, and helping relationships feel more like a team again. So if you want things to feel better, to feel calmer, steadier, and more at ease in your closest relationships, then this podcast is for you. Because here you'll start to learn how to pause conflict, understand what's happening emotionally, and then respond instead of react. And when you do that, connection starts to feel more possible. Quick note though, this podcast is educational only and isn't a substitute for professional therapy or counseling. If you need individualized support, please consider working with a mental health counselor. Okay, let's dive in. I'm really glad you're here. Hi, welcome back to the Communicate and Connect podcast. This is episode 87. Communication skills won't save your relationship without emotional safety. Everyone, I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic today because there is a really common belief that we just need more communication skills. But oftentimes, skills alone are not the thing that's going to help your relationship. Just think for yourself here. Just go with what communication skills have you already learned? Just take a moment, pause, and think about that for yourself, because typically when couples come to couples counseling and they're sitting with me in my office, they have so often tried multiple other types of couples counseling. They may have tried couples coaches and relationship coaches, and they have read books and they have listened to podcasts and they have scripts and concrete tools and things that they know they should do, but somehow in the moment they aren't actually using those skills. So if communication skills alone were the things that worked for couples to have successful conversations or successfully navigate moments when one or both of them are upset, if that actually worked, then people would use them. And then they would leave arguments feeling like, oh, we communicated well about that. And the tension would go down and they would feel good. And then there would be no need for couples counseling or relationship coaches. The challenge is that it's not really about communication skills. Communication skills are great, but they only work if we have emotional safety first. And this is because our bodies have a really excellent threat detector. And if my body and my nervous system and I'm perceptually picking up on a threat in the relationship, then that shuts down my ability to use all the different communication tools that I've learned over time. So what is emotional safety? That's maybe is one of the next questions that you might be asking. And when there is emotional safety in a relationship, people feel really free to be honest. They can be honest and it isn't so triggering to the other person. And there isn't any sense of being punished for being honest, because a lot of the times I have clients who basically say, like, I can't share about how I feel because it's going to trigger my partner. So they have learned to basically not be totally honest and authentic. They go into some people-pleasing behaviors in order to try to not trigger their partner emotionally, but then the partner can usually tell that they're not being fully honest, and then this creates conflict. But in a relationship where there is emotional safety, there is a sense that we both can be honest about our feelings and not worry about it triggering my partner, because we feel safe enough that triggers don't feel as triggering. And so honesty doesn't get punished. And another thing about emotional safety that I hear a lot from couples who don't feel emotionally safe with each other is vulnerability doesn't get used against you later on. So often couples say, like, if I share this, they're going to come back and use this against me in a fight. They're going to throw it in my face. It will be used as an emotional attack in some way if I share vulnerability. vulnerably. And in relationships where there is emotional safety, there is a little bit of a trust to know that's not going to happen, that I am emotionally safe to be vulnerable, that my vulnerability is going to be appreciated. It's going to be accepted and appreciated and cherished for the gift that it is, and then not used as a weapon later on in a different fight. Another element of emotional safety is that disagreements aren't perceived as dangerous anymore. If we disagree on where we should go on vacation, or if we disagree on which school to send our child to, or we disagree on the best way to discipline and address a parenting concern, or maybe disagreeing on how we should allocate our funds and the money for the next period of time. There are so many disagreements that happen. And the thing is, sometimes this is just a difference about how you both might prioritize different things. And these disagreements can usually be easily navigated when there is emotional safety. But when a relationship doesn't have emotional safety, these disagreements end up becoming really big. They just explode. They spiral and spiral and spiral, and it becomes this massive tornado of a problem in the relationship. And so often couples will keep talking, and they'll talk and talk and talk all about how to spend money or how to do parenting, but they don't get anywhere. And even if they try to use all of those communication skills that they've learned from books and previous couples therapists that just teach skills, they're going to just use skills and go around in circles, because it can feel threatening that if you have a different value than me, or a different priority than me, or we think differently, when there isn't emotional safety, difference then becomes threatening and scary, and it feels dangerous. But when our relationship does have emotional safety and we feel safe with each other, then differences and disagreements no longer feel dangerous. They just feel like a different preference. I want a green shirt and you want a blue shirt, and it doesn't mean anything. Next thing that I wanted to share about emotional safety is that when relationships have emotional safety, then it means that repair is often possible. When I see couples who are just spiraling in their communication and they're just going and going and going, and they're talking and talking and they don't get anywhere, they're often trying really hard to repair. They may even be trying to use the communication skills that they've learned in other places, but it doesn't actually result in a repair for them. It just results in things continuing to escalate and get worse. When that happens, people start shutting down because they just feel really ineffective at using those skills. When we let go of the focus on communication skills as the priority, and we focus instead on emotional safety, that is really what allows repair. Once I feel emotionally safe, then I can use all of those communication skills. But the emotional safety really needs to come first. And that is the thing that is often being repaired. It's not usually a repair about money, or a repair about parenting, or a repair about where we should go on vacation and what we should do when we're there. That is all content, and the thing below the surface is emotional safety. When we focus on becoming emotionally safe together, reconnecting in an emotionally safe way, the biggest piece of everything has just been repaired. That itself is the repair that most people are needing in order to then figure out whatever it is with the money or the parenting or the vacation. So if you're listening to this episode, you may be thinking, okay, well, how do I even just get started? You might be recognizing yourself here as having a relationship cycle or pattern of communicating that just spirals and spirals and spirals. And if that is you, I want you to know you're not alone. We see this all the time in our practice, Communicate and Connect counseling, and we have a very specific process to help couples work on this called the Spiral to Team process. You can always reach out, check out our website if you want to learn more about that. But one thing that can be really helpful is if you start identifying what your pattern is of communicating with your partner. And if you check the show notes or the little description where you're listening to this or watching this, we will link to that relationship pattern assessment. It's completely free. You just sign up for it, and it will help you start identifying the very first step of how do we figure out what our spiral in cycle is and our pattern. So that way then we're more aware of when it's happening and then can start pausing it and start trying to take those first steps towards changing how that all goes. That is a resource for you, but some other things that you will want to do to enhance emotional safety is we want to start by lowering the intensity. And what do I mean by that? We need to pause. Oh my gosh, there is some power in a pause. There is power in a pause. I just wish I could say that a million times. We need to pause that thing from continuing to spiral and cycle out of control. And it can be surprising how challenging this is. I tell my couples this is team task 1. We have some tasks as a team to move us through this process. Team task 1 is stop the spiral, and that is through pausing. When I start pausing, this is where identifying your pattern is going to be really helpful, because if you and your partner do that relationship pattern assessment and you both have a sense of how our pattern goes, then you both will get better at recognizing when it's happening in the moment. And then you can say, hey, honey, I think our pattern is happening. Our type of spiral is coming up. Can we just have a pause? And then when you pause that spiral, that gives you so much room to move forward in a different way. So that way you can start responding to each other, responding to actually the more tender things, the hurt feelings or the deeper needs in that moment that will help establish emotional safety, and really to do that instead of just reacting to each other again by continuing to get defensive or over-explain or shut down or whatever it might be. You may or may not know that I am a military spouse from a dual military family. I have a special passion for military couples and veteran couples because for so many of us, relationships are pretty hard. And then if you add on military life, it's just extra challenging. This happens more during transitions. So if you are moving, if you are about to go into a deployment, if you are transitioning to, like in a homecoming sense, your partner is coming back from deployment and you're readjusting all together, this sort of spiral can happen a little bit more because there is a little bit more fear and a little bit more of a sense of a lack of stability and a lack of safety, like moving, maybe not like huge danger, but it's still a little disorienting and can be a little bit dysregulating. Where do we stand together? How are we going to navigate being close from afar for a deployment? My husband just came back from deployment. He's been back like 2 weeks at the time that I'm recording this, and we are having more of our own spirals. Because there is this way that I adjusted. He was gone like 11 months. I have my whole routine, my whole way of doing life, and it can start so small. So like while he was gone, I developed a habit of doing like a morning meditation. So I would sit outside and I would do like a 20-minute meditation before I would get ready for work. And then here is my husband home. He's home. I'm so happy. Love him so much. I'm so glad he's home. It's amazing. But then he wants to talk to me in the morning and he wants to drink coffee together and he wants to do this. And it's like, wait, what's happening to my morning meditation? This is disrupting me. I want to still do the meditation. And so this is just one example. It's such a small thing. These spirals, they start with such tiny, tiny small things like, okay, can you leave me alone so I can go meditate? You know, it starts with something so small and then it can spiral so quickly. So if you're experiencing that, please know that it's normal. The goal is to team up against the spiral and the cycle that's happening, not just focus on more communication skills, because if you do more communication skills, you'll just have all of these skills that you're using while you keep talking and don't get anywhere. Transitions, like military transitions, might kick up cycles and spirals a little bit more, and it can also be because so much of our focus is on addressing the move or preparing for the deployment or getting back in sync that we might not stop to focus just on emotional connection and emotional safety. If you're listening to this episode and any of this is resonating, a takeaway that you could do is just think a little bit about, does my relationship feel safe when we have conflict? Is there room for us to improve on our emotional safety when we do have tense moments? And again, if you want help figuring out what your type of relationship pattern spiral is, you can check out our free relationship pattern assessment in the show notes. All right, see you next time.